And this is a simple matter. Miracles are easy for God. Yeah, this is a simple matter. Nothing's too hard for God. Yeah, he can do that too. What he's done for me, he can do for you. So don't tell me what God can't do. What he's done for me, he can do for you. It's a simple matter. Yeah, it's a simple matter. Miracles are easy for God. Yeah, this is a simple matter. Nothing's too hard for God. Yeah, he can do that too. What he's done for me, he can do for you. So don't tell me what God can't do. What he's done for me, he can do for you. It's a simple matter. Simple matters. Simple matters. The most complex thing can turn into a simple matter before the energy that keeps everything in existence. That's what that's all about right there. All right, y'all know what it is. It's the Lions Word Vlog. Thank you for tapping in. We are on Genesis chapter 10, and we're going to do Genesis chapter 11 as well. This video should not be that long. I'm not going to read all of Genesis chapter 10 and Genesis chapter 11. I may have said Genesis chapter 12. I'm sorry, Genesis chapter 10 and Genesis chapter 11. Or did I say that? Okay. I want to get to Genesis chapter 12 because the beginning of Abraham is a very important timeline. It's a very important part of the trajectory because the beginning of Abraham it's like that's where it really starts to become tangible that the consistency of the people dealing with this higher energy, this higher spirit, if you will, their creator, if you will, from the beginning, from their inception, from them walking upon the planet. Because like I said, I am a science guy. I do believe in evolution in a certain way. I don't believe that evolution is is like the end all, like the final say as for how things started. So like you have a lot of people that worship evolution as the idol, as the God, like, oh, it's evolution. No, I believe that those people evolved from out of the water because everything started as water. Everything was encapsulated. When you go back and you deal with the beginning, and it talks about the beginning times, the generation of the physical, what's here. It talks about that it was all water, and it talks about water being separated from water. And if you pay deep attention, it communicates that when the earth was first, well, let's just say like when this sphere was first here, I guess in literal physical here, like maybe a human wasn't around to measure it, but it was communicated, at least that the early humans wrote it, that it was communicated to them that it originally was water, and that the waters had to be separated from water. And the sphere, or just let's just say the location where the earth sprouts, right, pops up. It doesn't just pop up, first of all, but where the earth is like now, what it is It was water before, and then from the water, everything else came out of it. Genesis says that. You just have to know what it's saying, where it's saying it at, how it's saying it, why it's saying it. I kind of want to go back to it, but I'm not. What I'm going to say is we already went over it. It's in the first 5 chapters of Genesis is where the vlog starts, and then it deviates to the books of Adam and Eve. Then it comes back up to Genesis, because what I'm trying to do here is present these things sort of linear to when they would have been in the timeline as best as I possibly can. Or like, say like if so Jude mentions the writings of Enoch. That's probably when we'll get into the writings of Enoch, is when Jude mentions it, which is crazy because we could get into the writings of Enoch. We could have got into it right now, like in the books. We could have deviated from the books of Adam and Eve and went deeper into the books of Enoch, then came back up to the books of Adam and Eve, then came back up to Genesis. But nah, it doesn't. Whenever we deal with the books of Enoch, we can deal with them whenever, but it's a point where Jude, which is like the second to last book in the whole Bible, mentions Enoch. That might be where we deal with Enoch's writings. You understand what I'm saying? So that way. So right here, so again, I'm not going to go like, I'm just going to say like maybe go back and listen to the first 5 chapters. And then you'll hear about when it deals with the fact that when the scriptures talk to, there are certain, okay, look, there are certain versions or how do I say, translations? Yeah, you could say versions of translations, because things have definitely changed over the years. Like right now, I'm reading out of a New Revised Standard that has the Apocrypha in it. So this particular Bible that I have has the books of Second Esdras and the Maccabees and all those books that got Judith and Baruch and Susanna, Second Esdras, the Psalms 151, which is an addition, which there was more to Psalms, the 4 Maccabees, Tobit, Judith, the Wisdom of Solomon, the letter of Jeremiah, Sirach, which is Ecclesiasticus, which is like a book of wisdom. So these things, what you have to understand is that these books or these writings were part of the original scrolls that made up the Hebrew spiritual way. All the scrolls that was in like the Ark of the Covenant and that traveled with those people, it was part of them. Okay? When the outside cultures, the outside nations get their hands on sacred writings of their enemies, you better believe they are not interested in giving you the most accurate portrayal of their enemies' information and context. I'm not even going to go deeper into that because we always deal with that on this vlog. So it's going to be something that regularly gets talked about here because they did it. Not because I did it, because I want to make it about whatever I want to make it about. No, it was already somebody who lied and deceived and manipulated things before I even showed up to do this vlog. So it ain't got nothing to do with me because I got to show up and rectifying their lies. What that got to do with me? You mad at me because I'm telling the truth? Go get mad at the people who lied. Because all I'm going to do is keep showing up telling the truth. So I don't really care about none of that. And that's real. That's real honest. Again, I'm not reading all of chapter 10. I'm not reading all of chapter 11. I prayed and just kind of like got like how it's supposed to flow. This is what I'm going to say. Go read chapter 10 and 11 yourself. It's genealogy. Whenever we come up against these genealogy chapters, I am not about to drag people through that. I'm not about to drag people through trying to read these names the English translation of African and Middle Eastern names, Middle Eastern then African. It wasn't Africa or Middle East back then, but I'm just saying all these ancient, super early names that the English translated and that they tried to do their best to translate. I'm not about to read all them names. There are some of these trajectories are important because you can trace Yeshua's or Jesus' bloodline, if you will, all the way back to like Genesis. You can. And at some point, we're going to go through that trajectory. It's just not important now because we are so early. I'm just not about to read through all this. What you need to know is it deals with the genealogies of the ones who were there early, especially Noah. This is after the flood. So we're dealing with the genealogy of Shem, Ham, Japheth, and that because obviously Shem, Ham, and Japheth is the genealogy of Noah. And then from there, Shem, Ham, Japheth, boom, more spread, like a pyramid, like a triangle. It starts at the top and it just, it just goes, right? So it's dealing with the census. And one of the beautiful things about the genealogies, when you deal with any ancient source, anytime you deal with scriptures, ancient sources, whatever you're dealing with, when you have names and family names and historical names that are cemented as like the progeny and like the heirs and different things like that, and just like the names, the genealogies and all that, that's helping to center the work in its fact. Is helping to help you understand, like, now you're starting to deal with like some factual information. Again, this is why I really like getting into Abraham, because the fact that we now have, because Genesis, you don't see any genealogy or lineage. I mean, small, like short, like Lamech and like Methuselah and like, but you don't see, they don't really start recording and keeping the names and things. So once they do that and then they get into Abraham, that's how you can know right there that once we start looking at Abraham, that we're looking at some fairly accurate portrayals of their interaction with the Spirit, because they were starting to keep records of names. Okay, so that's why I like to get into the Abraham, because once we start getting into Abraham and his interactions with the Spirit, then we're dealing with the part of them that had started to become a lot more conscious about that Spirit, about the Spirit of God, the highest one, if you will, or the Creator, or the energy, the generative energies, or however you want to say it. But that's why I want to get into chapter 12. Like, I can't wait, because just from there, it just picks up and it just never really lets go. I mean, you got some genealogies and things, but like, man, from Abraham to Revelation, it really does start picking up, and it gets different. I mean, like, the Bible is different. There's a lot of people that don't understand, like, the scriptures, they're violent. It's a lot of stuff that's happening in these scriptures around these people, man. Like, it's history. Like, you can start lining this stuff up against certain things in history, and you look at it and it's aligning. Like, you really got to look at that and start paying attention. These prophecies and things are starting to come to pass. There's a lot of people who, they don't understand prophecy. Like, they think that prophecy has something to do with like going to church and, being told, like, something about yourself or something, like, or like, you get pushed over, you get pushed over in church, like, while they praying for you. Like, that's supposed to be prophecy. They don't understand it. They understand, like, Nostradamus, when you look him up, he wasn't necessarily a saint or called a Christian or anything like that, but Nostradamus was a prophet. A lot of people don't want to deal with him as that, but that's what he is. He's a prophet. He had prophecies, and they came to pass. One of them is coming to pass right now about the Catholic Church. Yup, sure is. Go look it up. The Fatima prophecies. You had 3 young Catholic devout trainees, children. None of them were older than 18. In fact, I think the oldest one was maybe 16. And they all had prophecies. All 3 of them had prophecies that dealt with the Catholic Church, and all three of them were given a different part of the timeline. Go look the Fatima prophecies up. So just because you think that it's not coming from the scriptures, you don't understand prophecy for real. Yeah, it's prophecies, it's prophets and prophecies all over this thing, but it's also prophets and prophecies outside of it too. That's why you got to know the voice of your Father. That's why you got to know the voice of the Spirit for real. Because if you don't know the voice of the Spirit, you're missing it. You're missing a lot of key information, especially presently right now on the planet. You missing it. And the scriptures and all these prophecies and these prophets and these things that went out before. And I'm only talking about these from the scriptures because, like I said, Nostradamus wrote about stuff that's coming to pass that is very potent. Like revelation type stuff. The Fatima prophecies was revelation type stuff. All prophecies deal with the end of the overarching evil. The overarching evil has been, listen, here's why the overarching evil is usually in power. Because they're disrespectful. They don't think about what they do. That's all they want to do is consume. Even when they get in power, they're not doing good. So where they run things, and if you just look at the history of what they've done, they're highly inefficient. They tax the planet. They tax the people. They tax the animals. But one of the reasons why they end up in the top position is because they just do whatever. They don't care. It's the lawless frontier when you're dealing with them on a certain level. That's how come they have the mentality of, oh, anybody could just come over here, and if you're willing to do whatever. But see, they ain't telling you about the blood sacrifices and the murder and all the different things. And I'm even gonna start going into that rabbit hole. They ain't telling you about all the stuff that you got to give up, your spirit and your soul and your mind and all that. That's why they try to trick you before you get to consciousness, because if they can get you over there before you pay attention, they got you. That's what happened to a lot of like Diddy, Jay-Z. I'll start going down the list and naming names. The Spirit is saying for me to read. Because I'll pull out my own flamethrower. Sometimes the Spirit, first of all, the flamethrower that I have come from the Spirit. That's the first thing. But the thing is sometimes I'll pull it out on my own, and that ain't what I'm supposed to be doing. So I got to be careful. The Spirit is just saying for me to go ahead and jump into these scriptures. But like, I know it seems like evil is like, it just seems like God ain't real. I don't know, like maybe just this, maybe I need to say that on this video. I know it seems like God ain't real because it always seems like evil is just always there. An ignorant, airheaded, manipulative, lying, deceitful, oppressive, genocidal, homicidal spirit is, when you see that's the only thing that's been running things and it ain't really been a change, it kind of can be a little difficult to remember that we're higher than that. They just don't want you to know that. If you succumb to that, that's weakness. Yeah, but I don't want to step on toes too hard, so I'm gonna just go ahead and finish up. Because a lot of people don't like to be called weak for choosing diarrhea. But that's what you're doing. You're choosing diarrhea. You're putting it in a bag. You're walking around with it. And then you're trying to argue with the people who telling you that you carrying around toxicity. That's some weak junk. Weak mentally, weak spiritually. So chapter 10 is not really anything major that I want to say here. Verse 5, from the coastland people spread. These are the descendants of Japheth in their lands with their own language, by their families in their nations. So right here is saying there's own language, own nations, they're over there. Now, here's what's very interesting. In chapter 11, it starts talking about all the peoples of the nation had the same what? Language. They were supposed there. How is it saying right here? Oh, they're their own language and their own nations, and they're over there. But then it says in chapter 11, when it starts talking about the Tower of Babel, which is where the name Babylon comes from. This is the history of Babylon, or if you will, Rome, Europe, yeah, England, Babylon. You have to know who evolves to become who today. That's what you do. You follow the trajectory. When you hear about Gog and Magog in the Bible, you have to know that's Russia and Turkey today. You have to understand that. You have to follow the trajectory. So then when you start dealing with Revelation and you start dealing with the end times and they start saying certain nations, and the prophet was dealing with, how could he have known what the name, look, just like I said about prophecies earlier, how could the prophet have known what the name was going to be in 1,000 years from now? All they were shown was certain things, write it down. And they say, well, this area is Gog and Magog, so I'm going to write, and in the area of Gog and Magog, there's this, that, and the third. Well, in the 2000s and up here in the 1980s, 1990s, 1970s, whatever, in the present times, you then have to follow the trajectory to know who Gog and Magog is today. You have to know who Babylon is today. You understand? You have to know where Judah, you have to, well, I'm gonna say that 2 more times. You have to know where Judah is today. 1 more time, dog. You gotta know where Judah is today. You gotta know where the Hebrews are today. And you gotta know about them ones that's trying to lie to you and fake it. Because just like it says in Revelation, was it chapter 3 or chapter 13? It might be chapter 3. I know the ones who sit in that seat in Israel and lie and say that they are my chosen ones, but they are a brood of vipers. They are snakes. They are liars. I know about their lies, and I'm going to uproot them. That's what it says. You better know, because if you don't know who the fake Israel state is, how you gonna know who getting uprooted? You ain't gonna know. You gonna be confused, or you gonna be getting told by somebody who either goes along with the lie or somebody who's lying to you themselves. That's what's gonna happen until you figure out yourself. If you following this way. If you not following this way and you just so happen to just be listening to this video, you don't know what I'm talking about right now. That's okay. Go find whatever you need on YouTube. Or keep coming back here and learn. You know? So anyhow, so that's very interesting. You know, what happens here when it says, oh, well, they have their language and their nations and their tongues. But then in chapter 11, when it starts talking about Babel, which we're going to get into in a few seconds, when it starts talking about Babel, it talks about all these people were of one accord. And then after that, because of that, the scripture says that the Spirit decided to scatter them. They had to get scattered. They had to start moving away from each other and separating. And so this, what it's saying is the Creator put an energy in these beings that desire for them to want to separate from each other and have some sort of individuality, independence, autonomy, whatever, however you want to say it. So right here, they were not in their own language and nation yet. But sometimes in the scriptures, what you'll have is you'll have like, this happens a lot in Kings and Chronicles. So in Chronicles, you'll have a time talked about. Then you'll have a time that is chronicled. So for instance, you'll have like a time frame in chapters, let's just say chapters like 1 through 10. And then from chapters 10 through 13, it's going to chronicle what you just read in chapters 1 through 10. If you don't understand that and you keep reading, you're going to be confused as to like, they're summarizing. Why the summary? Because as a writer, I'm a writer. As a writer, especially if you're long-terming, sometimes in order to like, let's just say like if you're not writing all the time, no writer is ever writing all the time. It's a such thing called writer's block. That's real. Like, no, all the best writers have been hit by it. No writers writing all the time. Let's just say, like, especially back then. So let's just say, like, there's amount of time we have compiled things up to a certain point. What we do is we make a summary so we don't have to go back through the information super deep. Because outside of that, what I would have to do is kind of like in the, no, I don't even know if I can say that because I'm under NDAs. I was going to say something about the AI, but I can't. Well, what I would have to do is I would have to then go, if I didn't have the summary, I would have to go all the way back and read everything. And then, okay, that's the trajectory. This is where I am. Cool. And then now, boom, now I can keep writing. You understand? If I have the summary, I don't have to do that. Now, oh, okay, poop. That's where it was. Okay, boom. Okay, and then since that time, such and such and such and such, this prophecy, this prophet, this word, that word, they forgot, etc., etc., etc. That's why it'll be like that when you deal with some of the writings, like, and you kind of get like contradictories, and it's like, wait a minute. How is in Babel when it talks about the language being confused? How are they all speaking the same language? But then it talks about Japheth and his people is over here with their people, and Ham and his people is over there with their language, and Shem is over there. But how does that? It's not talking about right there directly at that time. It's just basically like giving you the summary. Okay. So that's a cool thing. Let's see, you got the descendants of Ham, Cush, Egypt, Put, Canaan. Okay, so you see that Egypt right there? Egypt, right? That's a person. Sheba. Saba ends up being the kingdom. That Saban kingdom, that's where the queen of Saba comes from. Or the queen of Sheba, if you would. Or how people be like, oh, that's Queen Sheba. Her name ain't Sheba. It was a title, Queen of Sheba. Or just like Diana was the Princess of Wales, right? So that is where she comes from. So again, and she's African. Period. So you're dealing with African right here early in the beginning of the Bible, even though they want to try and tell you. And they're all that. Because we all are that. I don't care what you look like right now. We all come from the same place. You ain't gotta like it. I don't care about your colorism and your racism and you want to tell people that they're colors and all that. I don't care about none of that. We come from the same place, like it or not. If you don't like it, bounce on. You ain't gotta like it. Just like I don't have to. All right, let's see. It says, okay, so you got Nimrod. Cush was the father of Nimrod. Nimrod was a mighty hunter before the Lord. How they say Nimrod was a mighty hunter before the Lord, but then he started Babel, and Babel is against the Most High. So I think right there, that's just saying like he was just on earth in the creation of the highest one's creation. In the highest one's creation, Nimrod was one of the first mighty warriors. That's what it's saying. It's not saying like, oh, he just was serving God with being what he was doing, because he's the one who ends up starting the Babylonian Empire, which was definitely against the Most High. So Nimrod, look, if you go look up Nimrod, matter of fact, look, the Muslims will tell you about Nimrod. They're like, hey man, wait, hold on a minute. We don't. There's some sources is telling the truth about him on the planet. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, let's keep reading. Says he was a mighty, beginning of his kingdom was Babel. So right here, I do want to read that. It says that he was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore, it says like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. So it is said he was a mighty hunter in the Most High's creation. Okay. The beginning of his kingdom was Babylon, Babylonia. Okay. All right, and then we got more names. Canaan became the father of Sidon, Shem, the father of all of Eber, and Eber were born 2 sons. Okay, so right here, the sons Peleg and Joktan. Peleg and Joktan, those 2 twins, pretty sure it's Peleg. One of them, trajectory of Yahshua. And there's another set of twins that you can follow the trajectory of Yahshua through too. I can't think of their names right now. Perez and I can't think of the other one's name. Maybe Tamar, maybe Perez and Tamar, maybe I forget. Okay, these are the families of Noah's sons according to their genealogies and their nations, and from these nations spread abroad on the earth after that flood, after the flood. Okay, so then you're moving into the Tower of Babel. Real quick, I'm just going to read from verses 1 through 9, and then we're going to be done. From 10 to 31 just gives the genealogy of Shem, and it goes from Shem to Terah. Terah ends up being the close descendant of Abraham. In fact, Terah is Abraham's dad. I'm sorry. So it goes from the end of Babel to Abraham's dad dying, and then it goes into Abraham. So I'm just about to read chapter 11 verse 1 through 9, and then that's it. I don't have pretty much too much to say after that. Let me actually look at this real fast. Oh, it does say that Terah took his son Abram and his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, which ends up becoming Sarah. And Abram, first of all, his name is not Abraham yet, it's Abram, so that's my fault. His son Abram's wife, and they went out together from Ur of the Chaldeans to go into the land of Canaan, or Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there. The days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. I'm about to really start looking into these times that they was living, because that's crazy. Noah was not all these years, 900 years. He was 600 years making an ark. I don't know, but that's what it says. At the end of that, you got Abram going into Abraham. I can't wait until we start getting to that. That's when it's going to start getting really good. That's moving into like Egypt and then the Exodus and all that stuff. And then that's when we really start seeing the Spirit of the Most High is like super concentrated. Here's what you need to understand about the scriptures. These people are dealing with something that nobody else on the earth is technically trying to deal with consistently. So that's the thing why it's so potent and it's so intense. And it seems like when you read it, it's just constant. It never lets up. Because what I just said about how they compile things, and the fact that like sometimes you got many points in the scriptures, you have summaries. If we took out some of the chapters of summaries, it probably wouldn't be 66 books. We probably could lose, man, you probably could lose 20. I don't know how many books, but I'm going to guess that in the summaries, we could get rid of a few books. You probably just got a few books of summary, because it's a lot of that. You see what I'm saying? But it's all dealing with these people who just were dealing with this way. Nobody told them like, oh, write this down for the future, because then we're going to be trying to run the world with this. Nobody told them that. Nobody told them like, oh, you're writing something that some dude is going to be sitting in a hotel room, like telling people about on his vlog. They didn't know that. In fact, when you read their prophecies, there are certain times that the Spirit told them, yo, don't write this down. Write this down. It's for the people. Don't write this down. You see what I'm saying? That happens regularly. So it's like, it ain't all this that the mainstream people keep trying to make it like this point to argue about, or like they want to make it about like something to joke about, or like they don't understand it. They don't understand what they're dealing with. And these men are walking around looking for power. They're walking around asking questions like, oh, if God is so good, why don't he just change what's going on, etc., etc., ABC 1, 2, 3. How about you do something? How about you do something? How about you pay attention? How about you, with the God-given power you have to do something right here, right now, with all these billions of people that have access to the God power, do something about it, dog. Sitting around trying to what's the point? Like, man, do something about it. That's my point. Do something about it. Stop sitting around talking about oh, well, if God was so good, if he was real, why all this? Do something about it. And go find other people who willing to do something about it, and y'all do something about it, and keep doing something about it until they get the picture. Just like how they set themselves up. That's what they did. They chose to be vindictive, evil, lying, demon, devil, dark bastards. That's what they did. And they chose to force it. They forced the issue until it was the issue. That's how they did it. And you sitting around talking about, oh, why God won't, God won't. But what about the power in you to do something about it? But you worrying about what God gonna do. He made you. Do something about it. I'm about to hurry up and read this chapter 1 through. I'm about to read this chapter 11, verse 1 through 9. I'm gonna get off of here because I feel the fire starting to spike in me right now, and I'm just gonna keep this thing focused. Chapter 11. Now the whole earth had one language and the same words, like what I said with what was that? Japheth. That's a different language and a different nation. They said it right there. Yeah, that's a summary. It's basically saying eventually that's what happens, but now we have to get there, okay? And when you have a compiled work, you can have that, all right? So now the whole earth had one language and the same words. And as they migrated from the east, they came upon, as they migrated from the east, the whole world. Did you hear that? The whole world. So you're hearing the whole world in your mind. You're thinking about, oh, the whole planet. It just, no, just them who was there. That was the whole world at the time, even if it was only like 200 of them, okay? All right, bet. So came upon, so they came upon a plain as they migrated east. They came upon a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. This means because they all started moving, okay? They start, you have to understand that they're still early. So their trajectories probably are they're around each other at this point. They ain't going too far away from each other. It ain't no, well, the first boat had just been made, but I don't think boats are like made like that, like mass produced. You don't got no vehicles, I don't think at this point, like nothing's communicating that. In fact, I don't think the first sort of vehicle or anything like that comes from Egypt. It's the chariot. So they're traveling with each other for the most part, even if they're a bit separate, if you will. So that's how they can all kind of end up in the same place. And they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly. And they made bricks for stones and bitumen for mortar. Okay. Then they said, so they started learning how to make structures, basically. Then they said, come, let us build ourselves a city, like what I just said, and a tower with its tops in the heavens. And let's build up to the sky, okay? And let's make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we shall be scattered abroad on the face of the whole earth. The Most High came down to see the city and the tower which mortals had built. And the Spirit said, look, they are one people and they all have one language. And this is only the beginning of what they will do. Nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. I'm going to stop at verse 7. Now, here's what's very interesting. Present time, technology is allowing to the point to where you can go anywhere on the planet and talk to anybody. Yep, sure can. If you're smart enough, you can communicate, you can take your phone out, and they got apps right now. Like, it translates you real time right there. In fact, there are things being worked on right now. Actually, they already got it that they got an app that you can, the person will talk and the app will real time translate for you right there, like right there, to tell you everything that they're saying. And it won't lie to you. Be that as it may. Now, present times, you would say, well, why would they be so worried about that then? But then now it's like there are skyscrapers that are to the heavens. You know, there are nations of people that have clumped up and built great things. Back then, though, I don't think that all them people needed to be on one accord, just because look at what happened with Seth and Cain's seeds and what we read in the beginning of Adam and Eve, right? Look at how they were not able to find the higher level. But, okay, these people who become Babylon, they live a totally different trajectory than the Hebrews. And this is my point. Like, this kind of proves my point. They live a totally different trajectory than the Hebrews. It's written. We have the history of the Hebrews on earth for fact. And we have the history of Babylon on earth for fact. They are two totally different things. They have landed in two totally different spots. Now, I was talking about earlier, these evil ones who just like, why are they the ones who get to do all the what they're doing? Well, that's why he confused the language, because, man, could you imagine? First of all, I don't think Earth would be here if he wouldn't have. Because just think about how much evil is on the planet right now, even though he confused the language. Even though he confused them. Think about how much is here even now. So it had to happen, because if it wouldn't have happened, like I said, I don't think if Earth was here, it would probably be barren like Mars, or it would be totally different, or I don't think we would be extinct, because you just have to think about if the evil that's on the planet now was to evolve even 10 degrees more than what it is, again, I don't think the Earth would be here. So I think that's why it mattered then more so than now. Because why? Because now you have the arc of the Hebrews maturing, and you have straight up God walkers on the planet. Meaning, like, you got the ones with the spirit of the I am in them, for real. And once you got that, well, you can't have no evil that's just going to purely dominate and take control of the whole thing, because the spirit is going to identify itself in them God walkers on the planet, in them God talkers on the planet, them humans that have God in them, if you will. Not that the human is God, but that's what I'm saying to you. It's not going to be allowed. It just can't. It won't happen. That's my point. So that's how come, like, it just hasn't went just complete hell. Hell would destroy everything in its path. That's just like, okay, look, horror movies. In horror movies, especially like crazy slashers, like, it just, some of these crazy, like, demented beings that get possessed and all that, they don't know how to, they never stop. It's just like, that's their trajectory. They're obsessed with the energy that they are, just like I'm obsessed with the energy of the I am, what I am. Same thing. So verse 7, come, let us go down and confuse their language there, so that they will not understand one another's speech. So the Most High scattered them, or it says the Lord, but I say the Most High, because that's what Lord stands for. Elohim. Elohim means the highest one. Translates to the highest one. Elahi. Okay. So the most high, or Elohim, Elahi, Yahweh, however you want to say it, the Holy Spirit, the Lord, God, whatever. Not whatever, like, flippantly, but I'm just saying, like, if you want to get into all these different things about the title and all that, whatever. That's what I'm saying to you, whatever. Not to God, whatever. Come, let us go down and confuse their language there. So, I've already read that. So the Most High scattered them abroad from there over the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city. So what that means, they left off building the city. I probably shouldn't do this. I'm not gonna do that because I don't want to because I think that's defamation. I can get in trouble for that, so I'm not gonna do that. I was about to blaze this something that has been being built in the city that I'm from for a very long time, and I just saw an article or like a story to talk about that they're finally done with it, but they've been building that thing for like 20 years, bro. I remember I gave money towards that place. Anyway, man, like, whatever. So when people leave off, it says they left off from building, so that can happen. If you live anywhere where men build things, I'm sure you've seen them building, like, oh, that's gonna be dope, and then they never finish it, and then it just be sitting there, left off from building. So what it's saying is, at some point, maybe there was a conflict, maybe there was some issue that happened. There are some translations that says he caused a strong conflict to rise upon them. Yeah, there are translations that says that he caused a conflict and they were not able to work together. And then from there, that's where, when you move into Japheth and their lands with their own language, by their families in their nation, their own. But this right here says, oh, they're all together. Okay, so that's what it means. Verse 9, therefore it was called Babel because the Most High confused the language, or there's a footnote by confused. Let's see what he says. Or it says Balal, meaning to confuse. So it may not have been called Babel, Balal. Okay, now here's what you have to understand about the English. See, I just said that, Balal. Sounds like Babel, don't it? For the English, they'll just change it to Babel just because. Just to be ignorant. Just to lift it and take it away from, so it does not have the context as close to the original, so they can give it context, and because they just want to have the power. So that's why they changed the image of the Messiah. That's why they then try to switch all the trajectories and tell you, oh no, this is these people and this is that people, and they lie all over the place and all that. Like, come on, bro. So Balal, okay, sounds like Babel, don't it? And it sounds more like what would be closer. There's just something in my DNA that says, yeah, that's what it is. So, therefore it was called Babel, because the Most High confused the language of all the earth. Remember, you say, look, all the earth now, like, but like, it wasn't that many of them then, and it wasn't the whole earth. But them who was there, they were not able to then move back into working on one accord. And like I said, it would make sense probably that there probably was a conflict, and when they leave from each other, they try and do their own thing. That's just like why you have Protestants, the Protestant division of the Christian faith, if you will. They were protesters of certain things that the king was doing with his version of Christianity and what he was trying to do. So they said, no, we're going to do this over here. So they separated from what the King of England was doing with he got his translations and all that, and they said, oh, we're going to do this over here. Here's my thing with that, though. My thing with that is that the Catholics got so much wrong, and they start switching things, and so it's like from there, you really need to go deal with the Catholic version of it. Ironically, though, the Catholic version of the Bible has the Apocrypha in it because they kept it closer to the original. They weren't thinking about trying to hide it from nobody. They were just thinking about trying to translate it so they could be the source of it. They could be the authority of it, if you will. You understand that. That's a fact. Look it up. So he says he scattered them abroad all over the face of the earth. And from there, that's where the language, just the differences. Okay. And then, like I told you, from there, it goes into the end of the chapter, gets into the lineage of Abram, dealing with Terah, Abram's dad. And it deals with, like, introduces Sarah and Lot. And then we get into chapter 12. When you come back, we're going to be on chapter 12, which is going to get into the call of Abram, or the call of Abraham, if you will. Once his name changes to Abraham, and that's when things really, really, really start getting super interesting in the scriptures, and they just don't let go after that. I mean, it's interesting from the beginning to me, but after Abraham, from Abraham to Revelation is like jumping in a Lamborghini, putting your foot on the gas, and never taking it off until you just get where you're going, which is crazy to think about. Total G forces, right? You're gonna get there, you're gonna be you gonna age you gonna age a whole 2 years when you get there. You driving that Lamborghini like that. It's the Lionsworth Law, man. Y'all be blessed. Come back for chapter 12. Peace.